In preparation for the new Planet of the Apes movies, my wife and I have sat back and finally rewatched all of the Planet of the Apes movies, and today I wanted to talk about my favorite installment of the series so far, Dawn of the Planet of the Apes. I'm going to be going through the entire plot of the movie, talk about what I liked about it, what I didn't like about it, although I don't think there really was anything that I disliked about this. I have always said, and you might have heard this if you happen to be coming over from one of my other channels, that this is one of the greatest trilogies of all time in my opinion, so I have a lot to say that I really liked about this movie. Caesar is one of my favorite characters in fiction, and I just liked everything about this. Can't wait for the new movie, and this is, I feel like I need to say this, even though, this was a 2014 movie or something like that, but just in case, this will be a spoiler review, so I appreciate you being here, but click off the video if you don't want to see anything. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another video. If you are new here, my name is Kyle. I am your guy with too many YouTube channels. Let's talk about Dawn of the Planet of the Apes. So the movie starts off showing where the virus is spreading, and that's breaking from, of course, Rise of the Planet of the Apes. The virus is now spreading, and approximately 1 in 500 humans are genetically immune to the virus. So the human civilization is just completely destroyed. Buildings are taken down. Humans have no power. Everybody is suffering, and we are very quickly introduced to the apes, and you can tell that they have just been evolving and evolving even more. They communicate through sign language. Some of them speak, although I don't recall off the top of my head if they were speaking right away or it was a little bit down the road in the movie. Regardless, you can tell that these apes have become absolutely hyper intelligent. We are also quickly introduced to Malcolm and his gang, which are just the main protagonists, I guess you could call it. I don't know if Caesar was or if it was Malcolm. Regardless, the main humans of the movie, they don't know that these apes exist. They show up, and of course, you have, and the name's escaping me at the moment, but I'll just call him the bad guy. The bad guy who's a little trigger happy. He's storming, he's running through the woods. They're looking for a dam. They're trying to get power, right? Because, of course, the human civilization is completely failing. They need to get power from the dam. They run into Ash and Blue. I believe it was Blue. Regardless, they run into Ash. And, of course, the bad guy is very, very like, okay, what is going on here? He's scared. He pulls out the gun. And then, of course, that leads to confrontation right away. And actually, as much as a D-bag this guy is, I don't blame him for pulling out his gun at all. Then anybody would have done that, to be honest. You have these big, scary apes in front of you. You want to be prepared to defend yourself, right? But of course, the apes know what the gun is. He's trigger happy. He pulls the trigger. Ash gets shot. Ash gets badly wounded. And then all of the sudden, you see all of the apes start coming. And of course, he calls for help with Malcolm and the rest of the gang. So they're all there, right? And all of a sudden, all of the apes in such a coordinated attack, they have their spears ready. And Caesar walks up. Caesar walks up, and this is why Caesar is one of my favorite fictional characters. It's just the way he carries himself. And I talk about this all the time when I talk about movies is it's not often that your favorite character in a series is the main character. That is Caesar for me, 100%. He is so sick. It's like Optimus Prime. Like for Transformers, Optimus Prime, main character, he's my favorite. He's just so cool in that way in particular. So when they bring him out right at the beginning of the movie, he doesn't, I don't know if it's necessarily Caesar. I guess you can give credit to the actor too, because he walks in, he just encapsulates the moment. I find that fascinating, the way they do that. Like the cinematography for Caesar is phenomenal. Every single scene that he's a part, and you can see too, all the apes are making a lot of noises. All he has to do is just raise his hand, and then they all silence immediately. None of the humans know what they're going on, right? He goes, oh, they're just apes. And then Malcolm's, of course, like, do they look just like apes to you? And you can see them all coordinated. They're carrying spears. They're ready to go. The humans didn't know they existed. And of course, you then have the big grand moment of Caesar speaking, just like in Rise of the Planet of the Apes, because they're staring at these apes, these monkeys to them, these primitive creatures. Caesar's the first one to yell, go! And then all of the apes come back and start speaking as well. So you can see that these apes are clearly evolving. These are like nothing the humans have ever seen. But because, of course, I want to say, what was it? About 5 years have passed? I think that's what it was. It doesn't really matter how long it was. It was a lot. I don't know if it was 5 years. It was a long time. It was a long time. Okay, so it doesn't matter. They don't know what's going on. They absolutely book it. They run away. They start telling I guess you can call him a president of the entire little bit of human race that we have left. They order him to stay silent, but it's not silent for long because Koba wanted to follow the humans to their home base and figure out what's going on. So Caesar ends up wanting to send a message. So they show that they're willing to fight. Caesar ends up not long after they get back, after they decide that they just want to live, they want to be quiet, they want to just understand what's going on, but Caesar gave them no time. All of the apes showed up. Caesar's looking like a badass as usual, riding on a horse. He walks up, and again, Caesar capturing the entire moment. You have apes surrounding the human civilization. Caesar asks them all to be quiet, doesn't even have to ask, hand up, and he just says something along the lines of, apes do not want war, but will fight if we must. Caesar, wanting nothing but peace, understanding that there's good in humans, and this is going to be the ongoing conflict with him and Koba. And I have a lot I want to say about that, to be honest with you. So, just sends a message. He's ready to fight, but does not want to fight. And then he leaves Malcolm with a message saying, do not come back. Malcolm, of course, doesn't listen to that. After a little bit of a conversation, a little bit of shock, everybody is going crazy because they don't know what they just saw exactly. And it feels like they want to go to war, but Malcolm ends up actually talking to the leader and kind of persuading him to send a small team out to kind of reason with Caesar and reason with the apes because, of course, Malcolm sees that they are intelligent creatures, and a lot of people are just looking at them like they're apes. So they end up going back. They end up staying in the car. Malcolm ends up going in by himself, and of course, Caesar said, don't come back, and it's a scary moment where he actually just walks in by himself, finds himself getting dragged by his foot, and then brought up to Caesar, and Caesar said, I told you not to come back, but of course, Caesar knows the good side of humans. Caesar doesn't want any apes to die. He is completely 100% anti-war, right? Malcolm persuades Caesar to show him what they're talking about. He brings him to the dam, and Caesar doesn't want to help them, but Caesar wants them to go away, and Caesar wants peace. So Caesar allows them to work on the dam. He sees good in people, right? And this is where the conflict with Koba starts coming in because Koba really, really ends up hating this. So while they're all working, right? And another thing that Caesar's reasoning was for is let them do their human work, then they'll go. We don't want any apes to die. We don't want them to attack us. We want peace. Work on the dam. Let them do their human work. Let them go. I think that's a little bit of flawed logic personally, and this is where I find myself agreeing with Koba because knowing people, they're just not going to go do their damn work, their human work, and then go home. They're going to come back. They're going to want to take it over. There's going to be people that are power hungry. There's going to be people who will want to take the land from the apes. I think you're crazy to believe otherwise, but of course, I don't want to say Caesar's just an animal and doesn't understand that, but Caesar does put a little bit too much faith. But again, I understand where Caesar's coming from in the sense where he doesn't want any apes to die. That's the route to go, but it's a really big gamble. So while they're working through the dam, Ellie and the rest of the gang, except for the bad guy, end up bonding with all the apes. They end up playing with Caesar's son. Caesar's happy. It's kind of reminding him of James Franco a little bit, it seems like. And they end up finding themselves on a beach. And the baby monkey finds a gun that the bad guy was holding. Caesar, of course, walks up, and then he has, again, this insanely cool moment where Caesar just takes the gun, points it at him. I told you no guns, right? I told you no guns, and he ends up breaking the gun, tossing it into the water. He says for humans to leave now. Doesn't trust them again, but the flawed logic, I have an issue saying it's flawed logic. The flawed logic from Caesar, of course, he goes back on his word again. And to be honest with you, I don't remember how they ended up getting up to Caesar's home, but trust ended up being brought back to Caesar with Malcolm because Ellie was able to save his wife from, I don't know, she was sick with something, but I apologize. That part's a little bit fussy to me, but then Caesar ends up actually trusting the humans again. Going back to the human civilization, though, we understand that they're getting a lot of guns. They're preparing. They have a lot of ammo just in case war ends up breaking out, and this is the problem because humans are just obsessed with bloodlust, and I honestly think that we're like flawed and evil people. I think there's more bad people than good people, to be honest with you. That's just what I believe, and I think it's been evident with everything that has gone on in the world since recorded history, but Koba ends up being a little bit smarter, actually, and I find myself agreeing with Koba more and more every single time that I watch this because he is angry. He says Caesar doesn't trust humans. The only problem is Koba is also not really a good person because he starts manipulating Blue. He starts just, of course, like everything that he did, he's the one who started war by killing Caesar, but we're not exactly over there yet. Koba sees that they're arming themselves. Koba sees that they're potentially gearing up for an attack. Understandably so. He goes back to warn Caesar. They end up having a confrontation, and this isn't the first time that they've had a confrontation. And something that really, really stood out to me is when Caesar was talking about them doing their human work, Koba had a really, really cool moment in saying, because of course he's insanely scarred, right? He was pointing to different parts to his body. He goes, human work, human work, human work, human work, pointing out every single scar that he has on his body, everything that won't heal, all the torture that he's been through. That's human work. And that's true. That's human work. What are they going to do when they get power? They weren't going to go back peacefully. People like Malcolm were going to go back peacefully. But you already know that, I don't know if you want to call him a governor, like the person in charge would have absolutely, and even if it wasn't him, somebody was bound to go in there, kill the apes, take their territory. They weren't just going to leave the dam. They're going to say, hey, that's human property, the dam. They're going to want to go in. Conflicts are going to rise again. And Koba wants to take care of them while they're weak, while they don't have power. He confronts Caesar very angrily about this. They end up having a fight right away. Caesar ends up being almost strangling him. And this is where we get the ape not kill ape thing, because Caesar thinks that apes together, of course, strong, which is true. And they can always get along. And a little bit of flawed logic in Caesar again, trusting Koba. After the fight, Koba ended up going and killing 2 guards, taking their guns and going back to the car and assaulting the bad guy who definitely deserved it. But the generator's fixed. The dam works. Caesar understood that they were light, and he bonds with Malcolm a little bit more. Everything's happy. Everything's good. They have a little bit of a celebration. They bring the humans back to the ape part, right? Now, here's the problem. Koba ends up taking advantage of the celebration and sets fire to the entire ape colony and secretly shoots Caesar. Caesar looks over a hill and Koba just shoots him right from the bottom. Caesar locked eyes with him, got shot. Koba then uses this as an excuse to start war with the humans, because he goes and humans kill Caesar. Human kills Caesar. Caesar trusts human too much. Caesar loves humans more than apes. So he convinces the apes to go attack. Women and children stay back, and they go and storm the human civilization, while Maurice tells Malcolm and Ellie and the rest of the gang to run. They end up hiding. It's all okay for them, but the apes just completely just assault the human civilization. War breaks out. Everything that Koba and Caesar worried about, well, Koba's doing what Caesar worried about, is coming true. Apes are dying, but at the end of the day, they're getting better. The humans, Koba's putting them in cages, which again, understandably so, because the humans were going to do that to the apes. Just look at the next movie. And what I love about it is that is so realistic, but that's something I want to talk about when I talk about War of the Planet of the Apes, a movie that was just as good, to be honest with you. I loved this entire series. Sorry if you can just hear my baby crying. She just started. I'll take a little jump cut. But the only big takeaway to mention throughout this entire thing is, of course, like I said, the apes are getting the better of the humans at this point, and Koba ends up actually killing Ash because he refused to assault a human, because Koba and the rest of the apes are still loyal to Caesar. Koba hands him like a pole or something that he wanted to hit him with, and he says, go on, finish him off, make him pay. Caesar died because of this. And Koba just says, or not Koba, sorry, Ash says that he says something to the extent of, this is not what Caesar would want. And so Koba just grabbed him and tossed him over the building. And now Koba is, of course, the alpha male of the entire ape colony. People are following him out of fear. Very, very sad death there, but this is the big turning point for Koba, because honestly, and I was talking to my wife about this while we were watching this, I agreed with Koba the whole time. I don't like how violent he was, or how thirsty for blood that he was, right? He wanted to just go attack humans, but he was right in the sense where you can't trust people. The entire scene, I loved it. I already talked about it, I know, but I loved the scene where Koba is just standing in front of Caesar, pointing at him. Human work, human work, human work. Human work is not good work. Think about human work. Everything suffers. Human work is far from good. So I agreed with Koba this entire time, and as sad as it is, Koba was right in the sense where we shouldn't let them have the dam. That was not okay. Don't trust them ever. He was completely correct in that. We're then brought to another scene where Malcolm and the family, of course, left in the forest right now because all the apes have gone to human civilization, and they end up finding where Caesar is laying down. They end up caring for him. Caesar brings them back to James Franco's house, which I thought was a really cool moment, because you could see after all of the years, the vegetation starting to take over, and it was not the house that he grew up with, but it was still the same house. You could see the window there. Caesar wanted to lay on the couch. Malcolm found a photo of old Caesar. They kind of put the pieces together there. It was a really nice Easter egg, to be honest with you. And Caesar has this really cool moment with Malcolm where he said, I understand the good in humans. That was a good man, just like you. And they need to do surgery, but to get the supplies, Malcolm would need to go to human civilization, which he successfully does. Ends up finding Blue, brings Blue back to Caesar. And this is where Blue finds out that Koba was actually the one to shoot Caesar. Caesar was right that there are good humans. Problem being, I would argue that most humans aren't necessarily good. They'll never come around to apes. They wouldn't like being not evil. They wouldn't like being even or secondary in power to anything. Wouldn't be okay. So they reunite. Caesar's still wounded, but he's okay. They end up going to the city together. Caesar needs to do something. They free the apes that have been trapped, one of them being Maurice. After a little bit of, honestly, not so important explosive talk, there's just a little bit of destruction that goes on with the building, right? But Malcolm ends up finding the leader and ends up kind of just completely siding with the apes if that wasn't evident already. So Caesar has to confront Koba at the top of the building. So completely wounded, he makes it all the way up. Koba has a gun. Koba is just in fear, using fear to be in charge of everybody. Caesar has this really cool moment where he stands up to Koba again. They have a really cool fight. Koba's just mindlessly killing people. And it's too bad because, again, I agreed with Koba. But he has no problem killing his own kind. That's not okay because we know the apes, for the most part, they're more good-hearted than humans are. I don't remember if it was in the next movie or this movie where Caesar sat down. I think it was in the next movie where Caesar sat down and he said, I always thought we were so above humans, but I realized how alike them we really are. I think it was this movie because I think he said that on the couch talking about Koba. Regardless, kind of true, kind of not. After the explosives go off, they have their little fight. Koba ends up finding himself just hanging for his dear life, falling down in the building. Caesar ends up walking up to him. Looks like Caesar's going to kill him. He thinks about killing him. He ends up grabbing Koba because Koba tells him, ape, not kill ape. Caesar looks like he's going to save him. He starts looking around, seeing all of the wounded, all of the people being shot, all of the apes that were hurt, purely and strictly because of Koba. Again, I would argue, not the case. But then he looks at Koba with a little bit of anger in his eyes. He looks at him and says, you are not ape, lets him go. And what is perhaps the most overkill death in the history of TV, because he falls on a platform screaming. The thing caves in. It starts banging off the sides. He falls completely down to his death. Caesar then reunites with Malcolm. Malcolm warns him that there are more humans coming. I believe he said from the north. Doesn't really matter what it was from. But he said he warns him. He needs you to go hide. He doesn't want to have any war. And Caesar ends up telling him that war has already begun. They need to prepare for an upcoming war. And this is just the reality of their situation. Leading into the next movie, which again was just absolutely fantastic. I loved this movie from start to finish. Caesar was so good in it. He really stole the show. I liked Malcolm's actor a lot too. Every single time I see him in something, I think he does a spectacular job. Koba was great too. Again, I would love it for you guys to comment down below and give me an opinion on Koba, because I'll sit here and say that he was correct. I don't think you should trust humans ever. From everything that we've done in history, and even leading into the next movie, I'll be bringing that up because I'm going to make a video on the next movie. They put the monkeys in cages. That's what they do. That's what we would do. Most humans aren't good. That's what I believe. That's just the reality of the situation. It's sad. It's unfortunate. Most of us constantly fall into sin. And again, that's just the reality of how things work. Let me know what you think about the movie down below. I gave this a perfect 12 out of 10, to be honest with you. I loved it from the second it came out. I was so happy to rewatch it, and I can't wait for the next movie, to be honest with you. I cannot wait. I'm going to try to go this weekend. Let me know what you thought about it down below. Thank you very much for watching the video. But in the meantime, check out this reaction to the Transformers 1 trailer where we take a look at it. Thanks for watching, guys. Take care.